Gazi, welcome back to Inside the YouTube studio. And today is a very, very special day. We are joined by none other than Steve, Hip Hops and Me from Team Nerd Herd. So let's give a big welcome to Steve. How are you doing today?
Oh man, we're doing great. We're doing great. We're doing super excited is what we're really doing, my brother.
Same here, same
We're
here.
inside the studio, so there's certain things that are brought out during this live time,
I
man.
hope
So I
so.
can't wait.
Yeah, I'll just get a little peek into a little bit more about yourself and a little bit more about Team Nerd Herd and what it takes to bring the channel to life and what actually brought you to the channel. So, yeah.
Sure.
All right. What I usually start with is if you could just give me paint a picture of where Team Nerd Herd is right now, like as it sits in the community.
So with Team Nerd Herd right now, it is we have many representatives.
Mhm.
It originated in San Diego Comic Con.
Okay.
The people that do the show at this point in time are Alonzo Comics and Pops, myself, um, Rogue's Law, which is
Mhm.
JR.
Yeah.
You got Jeff at Geek Driven. You got Big Rob at Rob's Nerd Haven. And you got Comics Are Great as well. You got Eric Phoenix. So it's a meshing of good friendships and just total geekdom, man. So that's
Awesome.
representing.
Yeah. So I know you guys have a variety of different shows that kind of go down. Let's just do like a quick little overview and just kind of where it is right now, and then we'll kind of move along from there.
Oh yeah, man. So starting with the week, we usually do Monday Fanime Talk. Fanime Talk is branched out to many shows with Eric the Phoenix and myself.
Okay.
It started with just Fanime Talk, talking about mangas, talking about anime. We were missing that, I feel like, in our comic community. We got a lot of comics. We got a lot of Bronze and Silver Age collectors. We just got the whole gamut, but there's a lot of people on the east side that really do read mangas and do anime, and it's just part of it encompassing pop culture, right? We talk about several things. So it started with Fanime Talk. We were talking about certain episodes that my brother and I may watch as far as anime, or maybe certain mangas that we might have read and might have become a big conversation. And they kind of branched out to a little bit of Chibi Tales, which is your origin story. How did you get involved into mangas and whatnot? And then we kind of branched out to Behind the Costume, so kind of integrating cosplayers. So there's just a lot of ideas that are out there, and we just want to make sure that we are kind of touching on everything that encompasses pop culture. You also got Geek Driven's movies and shows, so he kind of goes over specific shows that are that are popular out there. Right now we're doing the Book of Boba,
right?
But there's so many premises. I mean, we can take the rewind, Be Kind Rewind type of take it way back to our kind of generation when we were watching older movies, or even what's popular now. So
there's tons of connections in that, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. Everybody can connect with that, whether you're reading comic books or whether you've just been a fan of like movies or cinema or whatnot.
I find that the lines sometimes get blurred. There's no real cut definition in terms of fandom, right? Sure. Like you can have somebody who's a fan who's a little kid, as opposed to somebody like me who's an old guy, but you share that same passion for if it's an episode, if it's a series or anything like that, which is awesome.
Oh yeah, man! It's a huge culture. I mean, that's the thing. It just becomes a culture, and then kind of zeroes into your community. So that's the best part about it, is that you can share it with so many people.
Yeah. And then you guys also do another episode as well, right?
Yeah, we have Mondo Mail Call on Thursdays where we invite people from the community, such as yourself, which is in the works. Definitely,
yes,
definitely,
exactly.
And like, this is the great part about learning what you collect, right? What you love, and it gives us the community a little insight on kind of like picking your favorite child, like we take it to the test. We got that versus segment. Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, girl, not on this show, damn it. But yeah, but it's just picking the things that you love, like putting you against it, which one is gonna be the one that you pick. So it gives the community a little insight about what you love, and I think that's a great thing, because we have a lot of people in the community, and some people that really don't get highlighted as much, whether they're not doing YouTube or not, or maybe they're on Instagram, or they're doing things like this, like you are doing and like we are doing. I think it's a great thing to kind of interact and to mingle and to get everybody, together in a
Right.
community. That's, I mean, if you're really saying community, you really want to do that.
For
Bring
sure.
everybody
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, create that atmosphere. On that kind of note, what I because you guys do a lot of live shows, which I appreciate. I've yet to enter into that realm. I'm a little intimidated for sure, but when you say community, for myself, being part of the chat
Yeah.
has created different connections for myself, and I see other people making those connections within and creating an even bigger community. Like, do you get like what do you think of that kind of, because sometimes there's like two different things kind of going on. There's like conversations kind of going on here and
Yeah.
what's happening on the screen, which is cool. Like, I mean, people kind of like move to whatever is kind of happening.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a part of a live show, right? I mean, you get the recorded information. It's there for
Mm,
it's there at your fingertips. It's there at your leisure, and that's great. And I think like editing is another thing, that another piece that you got to tackle, right? So the
100%.
time and because
Yeah.
the editing really catches up with you.
mhm.
And a lot of us in Team Nerd Herd, we're just adults, just like everybody else. So we have jobs, and
Mhm.
we would love to do this a little more, but I think when you do the lives, you're building the community, right? It's a level of engagement, right? It's
Yeah.
a level of in this generation, I think they want entertainment, right? It has to be
Yeah.
constant and self gratifying. But you also gotta have to have connection, right? I
Mhm.
I, I want to be doing a show where I'm talking about comic books, everything that we're talking about in Instagram or
Right.
amongst each other, behind the door, like closed doors and whatnot. I want to be able to talk about that. But if I see something that's going on in the group chat, I want to be able to allude to it because
Right.
like we're having a different show, we're having a different conversation, but it totally changes the dynamic, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think people really identify when they do start a show. They think, oh, it's gonna go great, and you end up having a little bit of quiet time, right? And those are the things that you learn as you go along. Where hey, there's too much white noise there. I mean, we need to fill in that gap.
Right.
How do you fill in that gap? And
Mhm.
aside from that, I mean, you're giving them a little bit of piece of you, right? Everybody's giving them their personality, but you
Right.
also want to bring those people that are in the community that may not be on YouTube,
Right.
that are just characters, and you could just point that
Right.
out, like, or call people out on their stuff. I mean, with our show, it's a bunch of friends, to more like a brotherhood, right? We've
Mhm.
kind of been with each other for so many years, so for us, it's kind of like a little rusing,
Sure.
a little bit of great. Group chat. I mean, I don't really think of it as a chat. I really when I call it the herd, it's like we are all one, right?
Okay.
We all really love the same thing. We all came together, and in the beginning, as you start these ventures, you kind of think, oh, like I'm going to have subscribers, and then as you get through it, and as people are supporting you, I think that changes. It flicks the switch, right? It's no longer that. It's more or less they become your friends, and you get to know them better
Do you remember a
on the
specific
side.
point when that happened for you, or?
Um, like in the beginning when we first started, I was just a guest, right? So
Oh,
me
okay.
me kind of coming into it, I have a sales background, right? In medical insurance. So for me, it's all numbers. It's all like I'm coming in thinking, okay, if I'm a guest, that's fine. And when they had asked me, hey, you have a different niche. You're collecting action figures where we're
Mm,
just talking comics. You should come in and kind of give your jest about what's going on with toys, like in the end, I kind of you don't not get caught up in this comic collecting type of thing. You're like, man, I'm gonna be okay. And then you start seeing covers, and you're like, oh man, that cover art's really nice. That book might be really nice. And you start reading, go down the hill, down the rabbit hole, and you start going back to history, right? I mean, that's I think a little part of us that we kind of miss. Um,
do you think do we kind of seek uh, that historical connection out? Like, do you think that's a driving force in a lot of us, or?
Not necessarily. I mean, people have different reasons for why they collect, but I think a lot of it really points to your childhood. Like
Mhm.
those are the things that you remember, right? I mean, as
Yeah.
we get older, we're still going to be 60, maybe around 60 years old later, still talking comics and still, you know,
I'm getting close there.
joking around, right?
Mhm.
Myself as well. But I don't feel any younger than what I used to when I was back in the days collecting comics and collecting toys. And
Yeah.
down to the age like of 14. I mean, I think the 90s were great for everything, even the 80s. I mean, we if you were born in the 80s or even before then, I mean, you had such an influx of things coming at you. I mean, you had music. If you were a comic book lover, you had comics. You had
Yeah.
anime just kind of be creeping in. You had so much influence. And music, I mean, forget about music. My God, that's just a mind blown, right? So I think people can identify with their nostalgic purposes when as they're growing up, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. You might have some new people that are just brand new that miss that generation, like these newer generations. Nobody knows about Voltron. If you talk to somebody that's maybe in their early 20s, right, and you talk about Voltron, they're going to be like, "What's that? You mean on Netflix?" But we know
Right.
it differently. So
But they would have like someone of a different age who's younger, but they would have a different Voltron. They would have a different thing that they can identify with that they had from their childhood. That was my point where
oh yeah,
we always kind of, regardless of our age, we always kind of look back fondly on those other days when we see stories, objects, things from that time. You just get caught up in it. I think that's a common thread,
mhm.
kind of through that, but that just could be my perception.
Yeah, no. I think you're onto something. I think you're onto something.
Um, w- uh, I just want to touch one more thing on the chat. What I find very interesting and intriguing is um, everybody's different dynamic on channels and having the chat involved. I think it's a big part of that inclusivity and being feel part of that community where it's just going to say it. You highlight somebody's comment or idea or something like that. I think that's super important to be have that engagement because I follow other channels and that sort of engagement doesn't happen. And I find that with you guys, it's like almost like there's these high fives and like all the time for people in the chat, which is amazing. And I think that you guys have a better ability of being inclusive for that.
Definitely. I think I mean, that's what we were talking about when we were reversing to when it flips the switch,
Right.
where you don't think about it going into like, oh, it's just numbers now and
Yeah.
algorithm. I mean, sure that comes into play,
Mhm.
but it's just like any podcast that like we have podcasts that we listen to that we look up to, and there's things that you pick and choose from that you love.
Mhm.
And I think as you are doing more shows and as you're getting more support from the community, it's those day oneers that have been there since day one. And I never want to be the type of person that's like where you get into the higher numbers and you're just like you can't highlight everybody, but you got to always keep in mind that they're taking their time out of their busy schedule to give you their time.
Right.
And it's obviously something that's entertaining to them that they're going to want to see. That's the other thing. You have to be able to identify what's working, what's not working,
Yeah.
and be able to go humbly and say, well, what is the chat saying? What is the herd looking at? Or, and then you start looking at analytics and stuff like that, and you start thinking of better ideas, like because you want to be able to stay relevant, intriguing, and you also want to be entertaining. There's
Yeah.
just a lot of things that go into it, but then you'll always have your day oneers that'll always support you, that'll say, hey, because I'm being highlighted. And I'm also, like it's also letting them know that you're part of the herd, like,
Hmm.
we're chatting about this topic, but it's not just us. I mean, and it gets to a time where in the beginning you don't think about that because you're just so wrapped up into your conversation. And for us, it was like, hey, we are not going to see each other for a long time for Comic Cons. So let's talk every day and let's kind of just get to know each other, but also like let's share geekdom together.
Yeah.
But you also get to know others outside of YouTube and on Instagram, and they come into to the YouTube community. And for me, it's like, hey, maybe you personally don't know this person. If I highlight a comment, you guys might share the same thing. And I
Mm.
think, it's kind of like a place to be, right? I mean, you want to be at a place where you're comfortable. You want to be at a place where your voice is heard.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the one thing that we kind of have to identify because the other thing is, we're doing lives, and I think this is also a great addition to maybe turning a hard left, a screeching left, with something that's funny in the chat, and you can identify it. You can also build with it,
Yeah.
and it also kind of builds that connection with that other person. You'll never forget a new person that came in that just lit the group chat up with a funny joke.
Right. Yeah.
And for me too, like personally, I think everybody serves a purpose in that chat, because I've had some time to talk to them in the background. I want to also make sure that that's also done too.
Right.
Because if they're taking their time to reach out to me, I want to try to get around it. Within reason. I'm usually really quick. I just try not to leave someone straggling, and if it is, it's because of work. But I think that's another thing. Like every time I see somebody coming in, we always want to kind of identify them, but we also want to put a different spin to it, right? I mean, you're a personal friend, you're part of the herd, so how am I going to identify with you? I'm not just going to say, Q, what's going on? Or,
Right, yeah.
I just got, I
You're
feel like,
generic. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like there has to be flavor. There has to be between you and I, like something
everybody-
that we can identify with.
Everybody else will see that as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, and on top of that, I mean, you get into these conversations and you get to learn about people, and I think that's the beauty about it, right? It's all encompassing, but it's more, right? It's not just comics. You get to learn about other people's, personal upbringings, the ideologies, their likes, their dislikes, and I think that's the great part of the things, because that's what really makes us human beings, right? We all have different opinions. We all either to agree to disagree, or even if we don't agree, at least we can respect other people's opinions and kind of
Right.
see the bigger picture. I think that to be open-minded it's hard for some people, but I think that's the way you kind of have to approach it, right? You may not like a specific thing about an idea, but you can respect it and say, hey, that's a great idea.
That it's an idea
In
in
some
itself.
sense. Yeah. Like there just needs to be a little traction. And I think that's the best part about the community is, you don't really say that it's such a great community until you're in it, right? You get to
Yeah.
get people's opinions. That's great. And other people have great ideas for you, and you gotta like take those and run with them. I think that's the best part. I think everybody is with each other and for each other, but also approaching the same journey, right? Trying to grow as a channel. And I think like that's just life. We all have personal journeys that we have to grow from. But you also, I mean, it takes a village, to build people up, right? I mean, you just don't kind of solely just go on your own. You also want to keep in mind, like where your roots are. That was the other thing we wanted to do too, is like, we're just some normal guys, we're just normal, we put our pants on one leg at a time. Some of us do. I sometimes I jump in mine, but yeah.
One of the things that I appreciate about yourself and about the channel is I'll say it again, is the inclusivity. Like you it's a compliment to you. You show up a lot, and what I mean by that is you show up to people in the chat, you show up to people on Instagram, and I think it's super important. And I'll be honest with you, it's something that I've noticed and I've tried to live up to as well, because if you show up for somebody, they will show up for you, right?
Oh yeah.
And I think it's so important. And I think that's with certain groups, I think that's a bit of a common thread. Like we almost have each other's kind of backs, and it could just be a small little thing, that you show support for something that somebody else is doing, an idea that they have, and you just, regardless of how you think about it, you're just there to be like, go for it, man. Yeah, this is how I'm going to support you and show up.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing, right? I mean, there's not enough time in the day. I mean, if you have a job and you're in 8 hours.
Yeah.
But I think the beauty about it is, like I can be coming out of work, or it could be a slow moment where I can just be sitting back and saying, okay, now I can jump on shows. I find myself watching more shows by my peers in the community versus even watching regular TV. So when I do have that time, it's kind of like I'm slivering that time for me.
Yeah.
Also with books, like these books are piling up, you got to read them. So, you gotta, I feel like you also have to be there for people. It's just, it's a common thing, right? It's not too hard to understand. I think, human nature is to be, ever giving, right? You give your time and you give people's time, you get people's time, and you treat it fragile, right? I mean, life is very short. and there's too many like BS things to happen to be really petty about it, right? I mean, you got to think
Yeah.
about the bigger picture. I think
Right.
it happens, but I think when you're doing a show and you're helping others and you're kind of supporting everybody, um, you got to be there, like because it could be a project that could be a gold mine. I mean, the show there's so many different ideas, right? So when somebody has like a really amazing idea, you want to be able to support them, right? You want to be able to get eyes on the show. You want to be able to get the community knowing. I mean, no, it's kind of hard when you're in Instagram and you're building, right? Because there's something about like a big feed going through that like everybody's kind of flopping into the same thing, right? We all have the same love, right? So you're seeing different comics,
Yeah.
but I think when it comes to shows, there has to be something specific, right? But you can see that person's idea and where they're going, um, but it doesn't take 2 seconds to share a person's thing. And I think I find myself
Yeah.
seeing that the community is great with that.
Hmm.
Not everybody is, but I mean that's not how life is. Like you're gonna have good and bad. You're gonna have people that like may not have the time to do that. So you got to understand that too. I
For sure.
try to I find myself thinking like a little more positive about it. Like and even in that's part of the journey, right? That just means you got to work harder and you got to get those people aboard. How do you
Yeah.
do that? By supporting them.
Right.
Like and genuinely supporting them, I feel like
Yeah.
is a big thing because some
Yeah.
people can throw your stuff up and there's not. I mean, you just did that, right? But I think having somebody spruce it up and feel for you and say like, hey man, they're doing a show. Let me represent. Let me
Yeah.
spice this up. I mean, and
Put
not
their own
everybody.
little idea on it.
Yeah, and not everybody does that. I feel like, but again, that it's time. You're tagging me on something that you're. This is a project that you're passionate about. So for me, it's like you get the message. You're like, hey, this person's going for it. Let's
Yeah.
let's get it out there. Let's get as many eyes that you can to. I mean, that's what friendship is. That's what the community does. It's just a snowball effect, and I think
Yeah.
positivity should be there. As you, I feel like as you grow, you should always keep that in your repertoire because you can slowly veer off to the left, and
Not pay
a lot
attention anymore. And
and life is full of crashes. So when you tend to forget about those things, life is humbling, so it tends to kind of veer you in the right direction. So
yeah.
just all a part of growing up too. I feel like,
Yeah.
right?
We're all growing together as well. Because
Yes.
I find one of the other common threads is a lot of this stuff is fairly new for people. Channels, back into collecting, all that stuff. So we're all kind of like sometimes like I'm not saying we're in the dark and fumbling around, but it's also new to us, and we're kind of still finding our way, right? And
Yeah.
how to do things. So, when somebody you can't I don't fault anybody if they don't do it however you think it may have been done or whatever. Like there's no expectations. I just appreciate everything that people do. So
Yeah. That's the best part about it is, I mean, I think when you're looking at what happened in this past 2 years with coronavirus and everything like that, I mean, you got to see people's creativity, but you got to see what they were
yeah.
really made of, right? You just got like in a short amount of 2 years, you're
Right.
seeing,
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
like several channels and several personalities, and I think that's the best part about it because people are getting a little more out of their comfort zone, or they're just
Mhm.
starting to think about really good ideas, and you're just starting to see the evolution of things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
everything got to evolve. So that's the best part about this.
Right on. I know. Well, speaking of like evolving, let's rewind it a little bit. Let's talk about how it evolved to what it is right now. Like you can take me back as far as you want to how it kind of came to be. Um, if you want to talk even before you're on it, and I just want to hear that journey, that path that you took, or that the channel took as well.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, it just all started back in San Diego Comic Con. It's just a group of friends got
What year?
together. Oh my God, I want to say we're looking at like 7 years,
Oh,
probably.
okay.
Yeah, so 7 years. We have a group that just strictly is Comic Con. Um, we and just the original core members of the groups because we had like Orange County chapter. Like I'm over here by myself. Over there. JR's over there like his little neck of the woods, and then you have Big Rob, and like you have other people in San Diego. So we all just came together. All of us just had a specific time frame, and we just the lines are the best. If you've been in Comic Con, you know that you're waiting in line. The camaraderie is
Right.
there.
Yeah.
It's just that you're rusing people. You're talking about what you love. You get to know people. So, I just was invited as a guest, to talk about toys, to just, like behind me, you'll see like a little diorama and some things that I've
Yeah.
collected throughout my years. I'm a big anime fan, but I'm also getting into comics, and those things are just, it just catches your, like your nostalgia factor, right? You're going to pick up what you love.
For sure.
And,
Yeah.
and in the beginning, those videos, man, I mean, the big first videos, you don't really know. You're just, like out there. You're like, hey, we're just going to do it. Just go for it.
Yep.
Just go, man. Just
Right.
go, man.
Yeah.
And, like you get to learn those things. I mean, it's funny when you first start, but I think after a while, you kind of think, if you're ever wanting to grow, like, how are you going to want to grow? What are you going to do? So, our staple shows have always been, like the top picks of the week. It's always been Mondo Mail Call. But, Alonzo is our executive producer. He does a lot of work for the show. And it's an equality thing. We try to kind of relieve everybody. We all know that we have jobs, so we try to do our part in
Support each other.
Yeah, and try to spread it, because it gets a lot, especially when you have a team, right? You have more things that you gotta kind of post for. The beauty about that is that like we just started to think, what other shows can we kind of bring in? What other ideas can we bring in? And, like you kind of toy around with different shows. You see what works, what doesn't work.
Is that what guided the show when you saw either if it was like views and stuff like that, or just response from the chat like that? Was that the deciding factor, or you were like, no, we're gonna do this and we're just gonna kind of curate it, and the people that do like it will follow? Or
Yeah, we wanted to stay true to ourselves, but we wanted to, like, I think in any type of factor, you want, like we said, we want to grow. So you're
right.
kind of thinking, well, how are you going to grow? Like there's other channels that, like forefathers ahead of you that have, shows with 1,000, more than 1,000 viewers, and like they're building and building and building great content, stuff to look up to, right? But I think
Mhm.
you kind of look at that and you say, well, how many more shows can come out of that, right? And these are where personalities come in. I mean, it's not really your personality, right? I think it's how you are. I mean, the real you, that should always be up front, up front and
I,
center. You
I think
should be able to know who a person is,
Mhm.
versus is it an act? Like, to me, it's not authentic.
I think people gravitate. I think good people gravitate towards that genuine feel to most things, right? And you can get a sense of it, right?
Oh yeah,
And I think for me, I just try and like that's what it is. And and for myself, I gravitate towards that kind of personality as well.
yeah, yeah. For me, it's all about the energy. It's all about like the vibe you get with people. It's all about the
Yeah.
uniting with people and getting to know them, right? I mean, if you can't kind of leave yourself open to that, um, should you really be doing social media? It's social, right? It's with people. Should you really be doing a show in
It's a,
public if you're like,
it's a good point,
yeah,
right? That's
you know,
it's a good point. Yeah, I
and it,
think there's some that it should
and
take that
you
advice.
you also got folks that blossom into that, right? They're coming in as
Yeah.
they might be introverted, but you get them to talk, and then I mean, here you go, seeing this person and what they're made of. I mean, some of the best jokes you can see from people that just clear out crystal, just real as possible. So, but yeah, I mean, in kind of looking at that, we just kind of looked at ideas. We really wanted to support each other, so we were saying, like, what kind of shows would you want to put out there? Um, and I think that's what we kind of went with. We kind of just said, hey, we want to do this, we want to do that. And I think we, as a team, we all vote for things, right?
Okay.
I think majority rules. I think that's how it should work, right? If you have if you have numbers on your side, and you got a bunch of people, you're gonna have different opinions, right?
Right.
Not everybody's gonna, share in that same thing that you might have, or that same vision, And the beauty is that if you have that vision, I don't stop anybody from veering to their own is you got to be true to yourself too, and you got to do what you love, right? You got that. I mean, that's the thing. If you're not doing what you love, are you really having fun? The beauty about that is with the group, like I think we do majority rules. If someone's outvoted, it's like, hey, you build the bridge, you go over it, even though you don't,
Yeah.
even though you don't agree with it. Like I'm the type of
Let's
person,
give it a go.
yeah, right. And you see it by the ratings, and you see by, I mean, the numbers don't, lie, right? And
Yeah.
facts don't care about your feelings. That's the way I look at it. I look at it like, hey, yeah, you can share a personal feeling about it. It may be your baby, but you got to look at the bigger picture and be able to set your feelings aside. I think that's a realist, probably approach that you should have, right? Be pliable.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's what we were doing, right? We've been doing. We've been trying to kind of plant the seed for different shows. Like we just really integrated after this year. We integrated to adding, like anime. Like anime, manga, cosplaying. You got the addition to Geek Factor Live. This is the great part about talking about the community, and the exclusivity is, or the inclusiveness is, that with our moderators, those are some of the day oneers that we've had. And not to say that, like if I could wrench everybody, by God, I would. But we would have chaos, right?
Right.
Maybe somebody kicking me off a show or something like that. I don't want me to mid talking and just.
See ya.
But these are day oneers, and we wanted to be able to, kind of highlight them. But the beauty about this is, as you get going into a show, people start to see your enthusiasm in doing a show, and they start to reach out to you, and you're like, hey, like you have an idea, but you don't want to do a show on your own. Like we felt like, it's kind of a responsibility, right? You have people that are supporting you. Why not support them? If they don't have a channel, why not bring them on, right? They're part of your herd, and Geek Factor Live was kind of, born. And I think it's a great show, man. I think it's really interactive. You have introspective. That's another thing. I feel like game shows, when you think about game shows, you got to look at the interactive part of it, right? I mean, that's what a game show is,
Yeah.
right? And you got to think about like the spin of it. How are you going to make it interesting for the people that are playing? Also, how are you going to make it something that you want to come back to, right? Something that's memorable. Like,
Yeah,
oh man, that game show host freaking counted me down and was making me nervous, or just said a funny joke. You're gonna have the time of your life.
It gets pretty wild. I've seen. It gets pretty
real
wild.
wild, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we just really try to put out different things. I know you constantly evolve with certain things, so like as ideas come through, we just kind of table them. We get together, we respect each other, and we try to talk about the ideas, and then we kind of mull them out, and then we give it a test drive. If it works, it works. And most of the time we try to like be supportive, right? We don't want to shut something down after like a month. Like you want
You
to look
need
at
to
it
give
in
it
a
some
span.
time to kind of blossom into something.
Yeah.
Possibly, right.
Yeah, and that's the thing. As a team, you want to also be able to support them, but you also want to be able to kind of give them the idea as well for certain things that you might see that could be improved. And I think that's the best part about having those friendships as well, is that you can, you don't, there's no blurred between the lines, right? I mean, you got to be honest with them so that they can, how do they know that they're not doing something if you're not bringing it to their attention? And then they're able to kind of switch the dial and make it better or add to it. And it may not be something that you like, your idea might not be something good that they might take. They might think, well, here's the reason why it's not a good idea. See, I think that's the best part. I mean, these conversations should be had. It's just as long as you're respectful and you're an adult, like I think that's the best part of these things. I think when us being closed in for 2 years, any normal time you'd be in a job interacting with people.
Yeah.
You're missing that. So I mean, if you're missing that other part now, and you're not able to have a conversation, like, are you really evolving? I think, like that's the thing. So as a group, I mean, it's been great. I mean, I think the communication and the camaraderie, also the ideas, have been part of what Team Nerd Herd really kind of strives for, and what we are. I mean, we're just a representative of.
I find collaborative efforts in terms of YouTube channels. I find them, and this is not to knock like people with just themselves on the channel, but it's much more dynamic in terms of the content that it puts out. It's like anything else, right? Is the more minds you have on it, and the more diverse. Like, I mean, I for one, sometimes you struggle. It's like, what am I going to do? Am I going to try and do this and that? But if you have like 4 or 5 other people, it'd be like, hey, why don't you try this? Let's try that, and then support each other. So and again, it's a new community in terms of for YouTube. So I find that the interest for channels that have more than one personality or idea maker, that much more dynamic.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you do have a show too, like if you just have one player and you have a bunch of other people that are around you, but they're not really talking, does it really bring that entertainment factor? And it kind of takes away, right? Because you're
A
just
little bit, yeah.
solely focused on that person. When you kind of look outside the spectrum, you're like, wait, what about that? What about like what about Lenny? Like what's Lenny have to say?
Right.
Like I just think for me, it brings, like you said, it brings a diverse and a different dynamic. Like it just honest Joes talking with each other, getting to see what we like, and what we don't like. I think that's the best part. It's the dialogue that makes it interesting, right? 'Cause somebody might say, like myself, I've been coming back to books for about 2 years, let's say.
Okay.
So for me, I pick up as much as I can, but there's, like you have big people like Big Rob or JR that have been reading comic books, or like Jeff, or, even Alonzo. So they've read several books. They know, like JR is a perfect example. He's read so many books. So like when I come in with something new, he's like, nah, like it's something like, like we'll see. So where me, it's like the eagerness of, oh, I can't wait.
100%. I know that feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't knock it either, because it's like, hey, so that's just a person there's levels into this hobby, right?
Yeah.
That's just basically somebody who's earned their stripes with several books that they've read. You just haven't gotten to read that history, and I think that's the beauty about that too, right? Because me being 2 years back into it, when I started collecting when I was 14, so you can think,
Okay.
There's been such a long hiatus, for me coming back into it and thinking, well, hey, what are you going to do to kind of spend your time, while you're locked up? Why not read comic books and just pick up different books and stuff?
So you were part of that, and I find I have to do a little bit more research in it, but there's this void, and I think we should call it, but there's a huge void in the late 90s, early 2000s, where people just stopped collecting, right? And then they just kind of got back into it. We know the lockdown, being alone, and I understand how people got back into it, but I find it very intriguing that there was just this big space for a lot of people that they just weren't into it, and it's a common thread for people of a certain age.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy though, because if I could have talked to my former self, I would have been like,
Right.
hey, sports are great and girls are great, but go
Hello.
back to these comic books,
Yeah.
and pick some of those up, sucker.
Yeah. Here's the list.
Yeah, I would have totally did that.
Go back in the DeLorean and just be like,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Hey, Doc,
yeah, here's your list. Go shopping.
gigawatts back. Yeah, right. I'll probably pick up the almanac while I'm at it.
What would you pick up? What would you, if you were to, like, just let's say one book, what would just be like, go back and just give yourself, hey, just buy this. You won't regret it. I'm not talking like it could be anything. It doesn't have to be $1 book, but just anything. What would it be?
It'd probably be Giant Size X-Men.
Okay.
In reading like Claremont and Burns, a couple of stories that I've read, like now going backwards, kind of backpedaling and picking up these books and reading them. I mean, the storylines, they're just there's so much depth, like it really tells a tale.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's like the level and the quality of an X-Men book that you're looking at, you're like, wow, like this is, I wish I was a child to go back, read it, and have that same excitement, so I totally admire people that have been collecting since they've been a kid, right? Because you get to see the nostalgia in their eyes, like, oh, you didn't read it when it first came out, let me tell you,
right?
And then you're getting it, and me getting it now, it's like I totally can appreciate a friend saying, you read it? Oh, okay, so you finally got a hold of it.
You got it. Now we can talk.
Yeah, right, because you don't want to, I mean, you don't want to collect books and not read them. I mean, I don't knock
Yeah, it
anybody that
happens.
is a cover collector either. But I think if you're going to get to that hobby, you're going to get the beauty of it. Books are meant to be read. I mean, you just there's a creativity level that just kind of sparks, that other side of that brain of yours.
I find that trying to figure out connections in books and characters, I find that super interesting. You can go down that rabbit hole, like, and you can spend hours just be like, oh, that's connected to that and that story and that character and this, and you get excited, right? But then, I try and like talk to like friends who like you said, have read a lot more. I never get that, get out of here, kid. You don't know what you're talking about. But it's more, it's creating conversation. So I
Sure.
understand.
Yeah. And even if you did, well, then you're kind of veering to the other left, right? You're like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'm not going to talk to that guy. He's like, get off my lawn. You forgot. You didn't even read that. What are you talking about? Yeah.
So did the channel, I just want to get back to, what year did the channel start, like officially?
Oh man, it's been 2 years already, right? So like
Okay.
we started right during the pandemic,
Okay.
and within a year, like we got the channel to the thousand, um, and then we've been working since then. We've been just kind of, like we're a lot of us didn't really expect to get to this point, and
Hmm.
a lot of the work has been great, right? Like I think when you want to, I think as you get older, sometimes you think I don't want to work for somebody else. I want to work for myself, or I want to do something passionate for myself, right?
Yeah, I know.
I think you get there,
Yeah.
and this is a great segue, right? I mean, it's a great way for you to do something that you love.
Mhm.
It's a topic that that something about, right? You're somewhat of a pro. I mean, or you're just picking up as you go along, and like you might be somebody that can tell a story, a real good story that you might have read and kind of throw your spin on it.
Mhm.
There could be some laughs to be thrown at it. I mean, I think that's the best part about it, is that you're really giving yourself that personality, and kind of you're just sculpting what you want. You know, I kind of veered off to what you were saying.
No, it's okay. No, but that's the beauty of it, right? That's the beauty of like even just hanging out with friends talking about books. It kind of goes in every which direction, and you don't even realize it, right? And it's just the that's the wonderful part about it. I find, right? Because the books in themselves, they're fantastic stories and whatever, and they just they create this space in your head where it fosters like all kinds of other creativity, right? So
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, just branches you out to so much.
yeah, and then that in itself, like I know you guys already had that connection prior with hanging out in Southern California, I guess it would be, and just going to cons and stuff like that. Did the channel foster even more connections between you guys, or like were other people brought in to, I'm not specifically talking about the channel per se, but like I mean into like you have I don't have a close-knit group of friends that I collect with. Like I've made friends through this
Sure.
community, well, virtually, and I've been privileged to hang out with them in person, but has everything kind of brought you guys closer together and added other people to that dynamic, or
Yeah, like I think with us being together for so long, I think after a while you start to think like, what are certain things that are kind of we're missing in a show, right?
okay.
I think you always try to improve that, and these are where these shows came about. Like where we added Eric the Phoenix, into this thing. I think also the beauty about doing shows is that you might have people that have wanted to do shows that have been studying, like kind of lining their ducks in a row, but just have not
Okay.
taken the plunge.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
you also get that inner aspect, right? I mean, somebody is watching your show. Like, think of it like this. Before I even started the show, I was watching stuff on YouTube too. And I wanted to be entertained. And I would say, oh, I would do this or I would do that. That
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean it's right. It's just my vision
Right.
for what I would kind of do to get some interaction with
Right.
people, right? And I just think that was the thing that kind of makes our show better, is that like you have the people that are part of the herd, like the moderators, right? They're a part of the herd, even though we have never met physically. Like you have the anime in Canada, you have brother Rudy in San Diego, you have something Wong up back east, and then you have Glenn on the other side of the pond. To me, they're still family because they started watching the show, right? And then they had this idea where they, like came to us and they said, hey, we want to do something. We just don't want to do it on our own channel, but we feel like it's appropriate to do it here at home.
Yeah.
Because this is our home. And I'm like, yeah, let's talk about it. Right?
It's also, you guys have created a very safe place. And I don't mean like, but it's a comfortable place where that they can, are allowed to like show their idea. Right.
Yeah.
It's tough to do it on your own, like, and be like, all right, I'm going to go with that idea. It's a little bit not easier, but just to be like in that dynamic of other people and be like, okay, let's do this. And here's my idea. Let's kind of run with it.
Yeah. And I think we also want to be free, right? You want to give a person the trial run to experience it, right?
Yeah.
But you also want to keep in mind that, hey, these people are giving you a premise and a platform to kind of do your show, but you still have them as the contributor of the show. So we might have ideas, for other people. They might have ideas for us. I think that's the beauty of it, is that you can get a lot more done with different, different point of views. It could also be a different direction, right? Where you get too many views and not everybody is, interacting. And for me, I think that is where you come up with the whole voting process, because it's fair, there's no in between the lines, there's more people that veer to this, so we're going to go here. Right. This is where I talk, this is the Greek experience, right? You're going to have stuff that's going to bring you up, stuff that's going to bring you down. To me, it's more or less like, you would look at it like, you don't want to hear that I told you so, because if it works, you never know, right? Yeah. But you also want to be like, if it didn't work, well, what was that? That was a learning experience. So now hey, you shelf that, you move on, and you make the bridge, you cross it, and then you evolve. Yeah. I think that's the best way to look at things, because I feel like if you look at it like a missed opportunity and you downplay it, it's more or less like, hey, how do you grow? Mm-hmm. Not everything. Your growth process is not always going to be right. You're going to have forks in the road.
Easy. It's never, it's not always going to be easy as well.
That's what makes it the best part.
Yeah. Because I like everybody, you learn from those missteps, those, when you fall down, everything, and you just be like, all right, not going to let that happen again.
Yeah, definitely. Right. You gotta learn from your mistakes, man. That's
100%. So I'm curious to know if you have visions for the channel, now that we kind of see where the road took to where it is right now. Like, where do you see it kind of blossoming into? Or do you see it just kind of like keeping the shows kind of going, or adding something, or
definitely
expand on something?
Yeah, definitely. I growing the shows, definitely coming up with newer ideas. This is the best part about it, is that we try to really set aside time to come up with ideas, to kind of hear what other people are thinking. So,
you guys have like meetings, like you have like,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Is that to table like ideas, or just to sort stuff out?
It could be a mixture of both. We could be talking about shows that are going to be coming up. We could be talking about guests that we have lined up. For the show. We could be talking about like certain things, like maybe shows that we didn't agree on, maybe shows that we agree on, maybe ideas, maybe certain community guests. Because we really, while we started doing like top picks of the week and Mondo Mail Call, we also started doing creator interviews, and that has kind of taken a little pause, because we've been trying to grow like different shows as well. But we're slowly going to go back to that. Dropping the mic will slowly come back. There's just a lot of things that kind of go to it, so we really try to kind of get everybody together, have everybody have time where they can kind of set aside and say, okay, let's talk about these things, and then what do we plan for the future, right? What is the end game? Also things that don't work, like if there's some certain things that may not work, we might bring it to each other and go, hey, so had a chance to watch a show, or or did you notice that maybe this show didn't get this many views? I kind of had a chance to watch it. Maybe change this direction, or maybe do this, or everybody has off days too. mean, I think
Yeah, of course.
when you get into involved with the show, you got to learn how to, like work stays at work, and then you show becomes show. I
It's
find that
hard. It's
it's
hard.
hard to walk that line, right? Because you just
Yeah.
might have a bad day, and we're all human. So for
Mhm.
me, it's more or less like, hey, you got to kind of be pliable and see what direction is where the wind's going, right?
Yeah. Like, because you said people are taking the time to come and watch you, right? They didn't come to hear you be like, man, my fucking boss, I can't believe it, and this happened and that. Like, I'm not saying to put on a different
Yeah,
persona, but just be like, don't bring that, they necessarily didn't want to hear that. I'm not saying that, they're not, paid to come and see you, but
yeah,
they're kind of paying with their time to come and see you. So
yeah. Time and
I can
place. I
understand.
always look at it. Time and place.
Yeah, like I don't know. I used to teach spin class. I taught for 20 years, and it's the same thing. You can't bring your bad day because people are like, you're there to like, encourage and cheer, and it's the same kind of thing where you're there to like inform and entertain, and it is entertainment, like
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
the beauty about the collecting and everything like that is that somebody may know a little more than you.
right, yeah,
You might not know a cover or an artist, and that person just, like has just had the like time in the hobby a little bit longer. So
mhm,
that's the beauty about it.
yeah.
They can point you in the right direction. The things that you're missing.
Right. Yeah. I find that people are awesome about that. Like, there's been so many great people to be like, "Hey, Q, you should check this out," or "Send me something," or "Think about this." Like, that's the best part about the community,
Yeah.
and I like to reciprocate that as well. Whether it's to that kind of level, I just like to reciprocate. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Each one teach one. Don't hide it, divide it. That's what I like to say, right?
There you
I
go.
mean, your cup is full when you're spreading it out, man. That's it.
Right. So is there anything like, are you adding you're just gonna kind of like curate what you have right now? Do you
Um, I think what like when you do the shows, you kind of want to look back at them. You want to kind of tighten them up. If you could do certain things that are maybe missing, you want to be able to have those shows, right? Because if they're not gaining traction, you want to make sure they do. And if you believe in it, and if it's something that you guys are equally voted on and you're passionate about it, then you got to revisit it, and you gotta make sure it vibes right. Also time frames, right? I mean, we're all working and stuff like that. Some of us are working from home, some of us are back in real life. So you got to kind of look at, like time frames and where are you going to maximize views? Where times are going to be at its best. I feel like you're kind of doing like calculus in that kind of aspect, right? Because you're trying to curate something different that's going to grab eyes. You're trying to make sure you polish that sword, right, for these other shows.
Mhm.
But then you're also trying to think of different ideas. You're trying to support. You're like pulled in every direction,
Yeah.
and it's all the greatest things that kind of make this better because it makes you a better person. So I feel like we'll probably tighten things up. We'll start to look at shows, bringing back new shows, and it's all based on time, right? And dedication. I
Mhm.
feel like you really want to do it, you got to make time. You're gonna make time for something that you want to bring back. Whether like if you're up early or later at night, that's just the price you kind of pay when you try to grow.
Yeah.
I think that's the best part. It's the obstacle. It's the getting over it. It's the testing yourself. I think people are really made by that, right? Like trial and tribulation and um, being put through the ringer. I mean, I think you're at your best if you succeeded. You can look back at it and say, like, hey, it didn't work out then, but I made it work to my advantage. And I think that's the best part about growing too, is that you learn from that experience. So you may not take that road next time. You might have a better idea to kind of evade that.
Yeah. I think each and every time the experience will be completely different. It's just how we process that information and use it to your advantage to move forward. And again, I think the group mind attacks that much better than the individual. I'm not saying that the individual cannot sort through all that, but I
You're
just
quite the individual when you do. because
I guess
that's
you there you go. You're quite the individual. Yes, when you do,
yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I
yeah.
admire that. Yeah, there's definitely some people that like you said, you look up to, and there's been a lot of people that I've looked up to, you know, do this and give it a go and kind of make it happen. So yeah, there's some really cool people out there,
Oh yeah, shout outs to the community for sure.
right?
Gotta love it, man.
Uh, we're gonna get to the questionnaire just a little bit, but I'm curious to know where who do you think your audience is? Like, you guys are at a point where you do have the community backing. You have people that show up, people that support. Who do you have an idea? Is that ever in the back of your head to be like, who's the herd? Like, what are they about? Like, who shows up to our shows?
Yeah, I mean that's been something that I've kind of sat down as of late, right? Because you kind of think, okay, we were in year one, like year two is a set time to kind of evolve and to figure out things that you're maybe not touching on,
Mhm.
like marketing and marketing yourself, getting yourself out there. Because I think if
Yeah.
you are going to get eyes to the show, you're doing again, we're in social media, right? And you're doing a show to the public. So if you're an introvert, it's not going to work for you. You're going to have to evolve to that, and you're going to have to kind of get yourself out there and get to those people, right? I mean, get to those newer people that aren't watching you,
Mm.
so that they can give you a chance as you're going to give them a chance. Because it's all about planting seeds, right? You gotta, if you're seeing new shows that are coming up, I always tend to look at those. Like try to tend to look at try to look at everybody's show if I can, within time frame, because you might see something that's just great. And the best part about it too is being able to reciprocate that, right? I mean, if someone has an awesome idea, like I want to make sure I reach out to them and go, dude, I was able to check your show out.
Oh yeah.
Dude, you
Yeah.
got
Yeah. Yeah.
perfect idea. Roll
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best part about that too, is that you need to hear that, right? I mean, you're never going to know.
Mhm.
You'll know, I mean, I guess with the numbers, but you'll never know personally, right? I think that's the thing. When you're in the community and you're doing something to try to reach out to your peers, it's a great thing to hear people that are citing by you and championing you, telling you like, wow, that video that you did, that skit that you put in there, perfect. Where did you think of that? Like it just, I think that's the best part about it. Is
Chef's
that
kiss.
Everybody's, yes, chef kisses, throwing up the salt in the air, and just, a quick baby slap to the ass and send them on out.
You'll salt bay, and then you're off.
Yeah, off to the races, man. Off to the races.
Right on. I know I don't want to keep you too long, and I did explain at the beginning of the show. I wanted this to be sort of candid look behind yourself, the Team Nerd Herd, and just to give people a different kind of perspective, because sometimes I feel I'm not saying it's two-dimensional, but sometimes it's just it's comic forward, where you just like, it's more about like the books and stuff like that rather than about the person. So
Sure.
That being said, I have a questionnaire from, and I mentioned to you, I'm gonna pose those questions to you. It's from inside the actor studio. It was developed by a French TV host, Bernard Pivot, but made famous by the show, James Lipton, for Inside the Actor Studio. Just a series of questionnaires where we learn maybe a little bit more about yourself. So with that being said, are you ready? I'm trying to build up a little bit so that...
We need a drum roll or something like that.
Maybe I'll add that, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so first question. Steve, what is your favorite word?
Oh, man. What is my favorite word? I'm going to go with dope.
Good.
Yeah, I want to, like your childhood, hip hop's in me, man. It just didn't derive by just falling on it, man. It was just, hip hop's a love of mine. I've loved it since, high school days, junior high school days. And, like in growing during those time frames, man, you get that swag, you get the Ebonics. And I think it's just a culture, right? And,
Yeah.
Like dope was one of the freshest words I've, I was just always rock with.
There you go. Dope. There we go. Perfect. So knowing that, what is your least favorite word?
Can't. You know,
Can't.
yeah. I think we perceive that as a way out, and the mind and the body can do so much more. I think if tested, you're always going to be surprised with yourself.
100%. But sometimes again, you need someone else to be like, man, you can do this. You got it. You got it. Sometimes you just need that little bit of. I
You
got
need
you.
that little nudge.
You need that little nudge. So these next questions, you don't have to take them literal, because I've asked them to some people and they took it a little too literal, and you'll understand when I ask it. What turns you on?
Oh, turns me on. Okay.
It's not a literal thing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no. I was kind of leaning towards. I'm like, I can't say it. Don't say it. No.
You can say it.
No. Like I think idea, the factor of idea, right? There's so many possibilities, um, and creativity towards ideas, right?
Okay.
I mean, and then you get other people's aspect. I mean, we're all so different, and I think be able to collaborate those ideas and see things come to fruition, or totally car crash into like a burning flame of disgust.
Like a Johnny
But
Blaze
yeah.
scene,
Yeah, totally.
head
Totally.
exploding on fire.
Yeah, you could get that, man, but you could get this, rainbow, this sunshine and rainbow all the way down.
My
Kinda
Little
like,
Ponies everywhere.
yes, yeah. The Care Bears, Care Bear stairs, all types of
Oh yeah,
crazy
I
stuff.
grew up with Care Bears.
Yeah. But yeah, ideas. I think the idea of something coming to fruition, I think that's a huge turn on, right? Because it just being fabricated with words, but then being physically done in front of your eyes.
Oh,
It
okay.
could be possibly tangible. It could be something that was the journey. Like, to be able to get to idea to realization,
Oh, okay.
I think that's
Gotcha. Yeah.
a major turn on, because it's the drive, it's the idea, it's the discipline, it's all those factors that kind of bring that to life. And to be able to see a person do that, or a number of people do that, I think that's all inspiring, but it's also a turn.
Right
You know,
on. Okay.
come on, come hither.
Okay. I will. So knowing that, what turns you off?
Oh man, just negativity. Um, I think like there's always equal part of it, right? You got your yin and yang,
For sure.
but I think a negative perspective and negativity uh, is lack of ingenuity, and it's lack of energy in a direction where like it's kind of like air and like water. Water is just kind of, it's like Bruce Lee, be like water, right? Like, you want to be pliable, you want to be ever changing, um and I think the negativity and that kind of energy doesn't make you
Yeah.
that pliable. Instead, it makes you um abrupt. It makes you do ridiculous things, and I think it's a time killer, man. It's just a ridiculous thing to
Huge.
have. You have to have it, right, in order to have, you know,
You have to have the balance,
positivity.
right? Yeah.
So I mean, but just the negativity, man. I feel like there's so much more to life, and aspects of it that when you look at negativity, there's so much more to it's just a fraction of things. But there's so much more to positivity. There's so much more and energy, so much
Yeah.
more that you can do with
Right.
positive mind.
Yeah. I find that people who approach something negatively, it's sometimes they don't know, and it's just a reaction to not knowing, right? Not being able to be like, I mean, I don't know, like, and being able to like own up to it, right? And they just got this negativity, so it's like almost like a barrier between that and not knowing. But
Yeah,
you know,
and it's like kind of like a pessimistic thing. And then in the also, I mean, if you wanted to give them grace, you don't really know, like their reasoning for
Right.
negativity, like so.
yeah, you have
So
no
that's the
idea.
other thing. But the other thing, it's just for me. I feel like I'm a more positive person. I try to not take myself so serious. I try to look at everything as far as what can be done versus what is hindering. You know, I feel like if you're gonna build, you gotta build up and not build down.
Right.
You know,
And
you
build
don't want
strong.
to be, yeah, and you don't want to be that deck of cards that falls. So.
No. Okay, that's great. What sound or noise do you love?
Oh man, the sound and noise that I love. I'm gonna say my niece and nephew's laugh.
Okay.
Yeah, man. I'm major into my family. Um,
Okay.
and my brother Eric Phoenix. Uh, in growing up with him, and then even doing this with him, I think that's brought us closer together. We've always been close,
Perfect.
and
Yeah.
and in bringing and having the team nerd herd, I think of them as brothers and stuff like that. So with just the growth and everything, like I didn't think I would be an uncle. Here I am being an uncle and watching these kids grow up and kind of look at it like you get to see imagination through their eyes. You get to
Yeah,
see the
that's
funny
pretty.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
So their laughs. That's probably laughter is probably one of the best things to hear.
That's awesome.
Music
Yeah.
to my ears.
Nice. Good. So I guess you know what's coming. What sound or noise do you hate? There's been a bit of a common thread with this when I've asked people, and I'll tell you after.
Okay. What's a sound that I hate? I hate excuses.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I
interesting.
hate to hear excuses. I'm very much like of the don't tell me, show me type of thing. Um, when I was younger, I grew up with martial arts, and I used to hate that saying, and it kind of just was woven into me after a while because I understood it. Because as a kid, remember how I told you I hate the word I can't. Being trained, you would say that, and all odds would be defied. You can't say can't. You're gonna do it. And you would do it, and you'd be like, "Oh, I could." That's how you know your mind is stronger, and you
Right.
can take yourself to a threshold.
Yeah.
But the excuses, right? Not that I would call anybody out on it. I could, but I tend to take they'll learn eventually. Life will have a funny way of kind of showing them.
They'll
But
get it.
but the excuses, yeah. I'm more of a mind of, hey, don't tell me, show me. Don't, because I feel like you're not really at your full potential when you have those, right? Those are barriers, those are buffer zones, those are insecurities. They're just,
We all have them, and
And we all
sometimes
have
it's a natural
yeah,
thing that just occurs, right? So
yeah. And then the other aspect too is like, what's the specifics of it? Because if
of
there's
the situation,
situation,
Yeah,
right? Because if
yeah,
the
yeah.
excuses come in and they've let you down,
Yeah.
but they're not owning it.
Yeah.
To me, that's a major turnoff too, because it's like, oh wow, like you're not owning your stuff. Like I can't even, you and I can't even have a conversation eye to eye. You need to be able to own up to stuff, and it just shows growth. So yeah, the excuses.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Everybody else that I've asked, it's always been a noise, and it's always been something scraping,
Oh,
like
yeah.
metal on metal and stuff like that. But you know what? Your answer was awesome because it was more of a there's a common theme that's kind of happening with these questions, and I'm getting a better sense. But I appreciate that answer. It was awesome. It
Oh,
was really good.
thank you.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, oh yeah, man, if you're at the dentist and you're getting your teeth cleaned, ooh, you want to punch that dentist right in his face and not catch a case, though. Oh, that rhymed. My bad.
Oh, it's okay.
That was not meant to happen.
All right. So, what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh man, I would probably, it'd have to be two things. It'd have to either like when martial arts is a big part of my life. I've taken a backseat for it, just with injuries and stuff like that. But I always tell my friends or even my dad, I'm like, I wish I would have stayed in martial arts longer to evolve and learn other things. I said I probably would have loved to fight. I just spree sparring and doing tournaments and all that stuff, and being trained and kind of hitting that pivot and reaching a pinnacle.
Mm-hmm.
you get to know what you're really made of by getting beaten, learning stuff like that. So I mean I just love the excitement. I used to love getting hit, like, because it would be like a
Really?
chess game. Oh
Really?
yeah, like if we were boxing, or if someone got you with a good kick and they caught you off guard.
You,
Not to the
you,
point where you're losing like
close,
breath,
but
because that's a bad thing to happen. But if you could see someone's technique and the beauty of it, and they put it together, I think
and
it's
take you
poetry
down.
and poetry in motion, right? I feel like, to me, that the adventure of it, the exhilaration. The other thing would be, like, a stand-up comedian.
Oh wow, no
Like,
way.
yeah, like, I've had friends tell me, and I always tell them, like, you say that because I'm just your friend. But I've had like strangers tell me, like, no, it's your facial expressions, it's your eyes, it's the way you time things,
Oh,
and
okay.
you can
Yeah,
tell a story. And I have friends that
it's
I
all about
say the
timing.
same thing to, right? I look at them, I'm like, oh man, like, you're perfect. Like, I have a friend that is in the chat, in the herd chat.
Okay.
If you ever see him, it's Jesus chooses you.
Okay. I'll
And
look
he
out
always
for him.
greets with the BDS. I won't say it on this show, but he represents that, and that man can
You can
tell
say
you a
it.
story.
You can say it. Say it. What is it? What does it mean?
Oh, BDS is Big Dick Styles, man. Like, does, like, but the guy can tell a story.
Like walking into a room and be like,
Yeah, like the
Okay.
Vince McMahon thing, like strutting his stuff.
okay, gotcha. Yeah.
But the guy can tell a story, and the way he tells the story, I mean, you'll just be hunched over, heeled over, laughing. But also, like, we kind of feed off of each other. I mean, we're like, there'll be things that I will tell him, and we'll just be laughing. I think laughter is the best thing, right? It's the best type of hearing that like the best type of sound you'll ever hear. But to be able to control like an audience in that sense and make them laugh, they might be having a bad day, but to be able to do that, I think it's a great thing to be able to share that with somebody, to be able to share ideals, and then also to be able to cross those lines, right? Because comedians, quite the contrary, are very dark. They've had
Yeah. For
dark
sure.
histories,
Yeah.
and they're able to cross those lines. And I think that's the best part, because you might find somebody that's your friend that'd be like, I've been always wanting to say that, but you said it for me. Because it could be politically incorrect, right? But
Right.
you have to have somebody that
Too soon?
is wild. Yeah, you have to have someone that's kind of a little wild, or someone that's just like, oh, like, where do you come up with this stuff? That's some of the things I get, like some of the things, like, my friends would be like dying of laughter, like, where'd you come up with that? Like, my answer to that is just, hey, I'm just an idiot. I let it fly.
That's
I
me.
see if it hits you, and if it does, we'll see where it goes. If it doesn't, then it's a swing and a miss. We'll see.
When it lands, it's good. I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Like when something lands and you just like,
Yeah, and then you get the tears, you get the laughter later. I mean, I've had instances where we'll be walking with friends, and they have said something minutes ago or like an hour ago, and I'll just be laughing. They're like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" I'm like, "Oh my god, dude! If you were all in my situation, in my position, to look at your face when you nailed me with that joke, it's like the best moments ever."
it's good medicine, right?
Oh yeah, laughter is great medicine.
Who's your favorite comedian then?
Oh man, like, I gotta go with the GOAT. Dave Chappelle is probably one of my favorites. But if we were to go like way back when, I would probably say Richard Pryor.
Oh yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Andrew Dice Clay. George Carlin. George Carlin was very real. Also, like, if we were really to kind of nail it, I'd probably say Joey Diaz. Joey Diaz is my type of. Joey Diaz, if you like Joe Rogan, Joey Diaz he was on the Ninth Yard. He was on Spider-Man as the security guard. He was in the new Sopranos movie. But he is a Jersey boy.
right. Yeah. Okay.
He's a Jersey boy, man.
Yeah.
And the same thing I was telling you about my friend, that like, he tells these stories, and you're sitting there dying, healed over, but you're wondering, like, you couldn't even write that. You like, that needed to be made in TV. Where is Hollywood? Where are you at? Like, the next sketch, right? Like you could see that and you'd be dying.
Wow, that's good.
I think Joey Diaz is 10
Alright.
times better. I mean, he's lived an interesting life. And it's just so funny, like his stories, but his childhood as well. He grew up at a different time, different generation, and he has that swag to him. He has that Jersey accent, like
Walking
that
in.
East Coast accent. He's Cuban, but he sounds Italian. He just is a funny character, and she's just his humor is very off color. It's very like it's funny. It could be known as raunchy or a little bit more, a little over the top in some
All
sort
those
of
guys that you
sense.
mentioned, that's their MO, right?
Oh yeah, but I think for me, it's more or less like, wow, he took it there, or like the things that you're saying, like you could keep that quiet to yourself and laugh to yourself, but somebody has that prowess to be like,
When you're like,
hey,
oh my God,
that's
did he just say that?
yeah, and you're just like, oh my god, you're just dying, So yeah, to make a long story short, it'd have to be either a stand-up comedian or
I think you want to be a
martial
comedian.
artist.
I think that's the answer.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Stay in hotel rooms,
yeah,
you get booed off stage, and that's the process of it, right? But
right.
you never know,
Yeah,
until you're put to the test. But
yeah, that's interesting. Wow, that's cool. All right, we have the final question, and it is the one that I mentioned is a little religiously based. So, if heaven exists, what would you like God to say? What would you like God to say to you when you arrive at the pearly gates?
oh man, it'd probably be like, you did a good job. I think if you're looking at not in a religious way, I think I commend anybody who is religious, who has a
Mhm.
relationship with God, or that has a better peace, or one with the universe. Whatever your take is,
Right.
I
Yeah.
really respect it. But I think in principles, like I think you could judge it with like just like positive, negative, yin and yang,
Yeah.
good and bad.
Right.
In your life, did you make an impact?
Yeah.
Did you do everything that you loved? Did you love back? Did you give your utmost? Um, was there empathy given in your daily,
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah.
in your day, in what you did? I think in some cases, a lot of the time people look at accolades and riches and stuff like that, but that doesn't
Right.
really matter.
No. No.
What you are rich is in soul, right?
Mhm.
And the type of person you are, the
Yeah.
type of person you want to be, and not betrayed, the type of person that you want to be remembered by.
Mhm.
I think that's the most important thing, the most important message. Did you make an impact? So for me to be there and him to tell me you did a good job, it makes me, it humbles me in a sense, like, okay, I can leave my loved ones behind, and I can know that I did a good job in life.
That's awesome.
And I just kind of set a path, like a bigger picture to the ever, quandary of life.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this. There was very some experiences people really they don't know what to answer to them, but your answers are wow. They really come from the heart, from the soul. I appreciate that. That's great.
Oh, thank you, man. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Yeah, man. It's me 100%, man.
And
I try to be the best person I can be, man.
that's all we can
Take
do,
my
right?
best foot forward, right?
That's all we can do. That's all we can do. Well, that's I don't want to take any more of your time. That's it. We're going to I'm going to do a little outro, say goodbye to everybody. But I thought at the end, I thought we would do a little exit team nerd herd style. So I'll do a little, right? Oh, okay. So guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me and Steve. It's been a blast. Hope everybody has an awesome day, evening, and I appreciate you all for joining us. Steve, can you take us out?
Oh yeah, my brother. I can take you out, team nerd style. You want to do it right? Collect what you like. Much love. Always.
Here we go. Perfect. Later, guys.